First time buyer's grant. What is it? How do I get it? What are my thoughts on the recent changes? What can I actually buy with it? And is it better to buy a new home or a second-hand home? These are all questions I'm going to try and answer within this video. Over the last few weeks, over on Instagram, I've been asked a number of questions in regards to the first-time buyer's grant. So first off, what is it? It's a grant to first-time buyers where they can get 5% of the property cost up to a maximum of €20,000. In the last few weeks, that has been increased to 10% of the property cost up to a maximum of €30,000 until the end of the year. The grant itself is actually due to expire at the end of 2021. So what can you actually buy? Well, you can only buy a new home where VAT is applied or where you're building a home yourself. You cannot buy a home if you're planning to rent it out. You cannot buy an investment property. You cannot buy a commercial property. You cannot buy a commercial property with the view to convert it into a home. And on that point, actually, it's quite expensive and costly in terms of converting a commercial property back to a residential property. First off, you have to go in for planning permission, and then once you get the planning permission, any changes you make, you have to make sure they comply with building regs and fire regs. And sometimes that can be quite difficult because commercial buildings aren't designed for habitable use, i.e. they may not have enough windows, and therefore it may be impossible to actually convert them back into a residential occupancy. It would also actually be quite difficult to get a mortgage on a property if that's what your intention is. Generally speaking, a normal mortgage wouldn't be granted in these circumstances, and therefore a first-time buyer's grant definitely won't be applied. But if you are really keen in terms of buying an investment property as your first property, one option is if you buy the property for yourself and you live in it, there is an option perhaps that you rent out a room, but you have to stay living within the property. So how do you actually qualify for the grant? First off, you have to be tax compliant. The next thing, it's based on the last 4 years of income tax that you've paid. So therefore, that actually can kind of rule out anyone who's maybe coming back to the country or people who haven't paid income tax over the last 4 years. What that also means is it's income tax. It's not any other tax that you may have paid. It's only relevant to your income tax. The contractor or developer also has to be approved by the revenue to be part of the scheme as well. The property can't be any more than 500,000 and you have to be borrowing more than 70% of the property price. So how is it actually paid to you once you actually qualify? Well, it's paid directly to the builder or developer once you're approved and you've gone sale agreed on a property. If you're building a house, it's paid directly to the lender that you borrowed the money from. Another question that actually comes up a lot is there any clawbacks? Well, yes, the revenue can claw back any grant that they've given you under the first time buyer's grant. They can claw it back if you weren't actually eligible in the first place. They can also claw it back if you don't live in the property for more than 5 years. And generally speaking, if you move out within the first year, it's 100% clawback, and that drops to 80, 60, 40 and 20 as the years go on. So my thoughts on the actual recent increase to 10% of the property price up to a maximum of 30,000. Well, do I think this will help first-time buyers? Yes, it will help first-time buyers in terms of they're actually now being able to get a bigger grant off the government. However, what it's really aimed at is it's aimed at builders and the banks. So it's aimed at banks so they can continue to lend. It's aimed at developers and builders so they can keep their prices up and actually keep construction going. There is evidence out there that actually some developers have already increased their price by the 10,000 extra already, and crazy house prices on Instagram actually highlight this all the time. Building homes here in Ireland is quite expensive. The actual first-time buyer's grant allows builders to actually generate a profit or make developments actually feasible. In some cases they wouldn't be feasible if the grant wasn't there. Profit shouldn't actually be seen as a bad word, but the grant definitely does increase property prices for new homes that are under 500,000. Banks will be reviewing all their loan applications right now, and they will be applying a higher risk to a number of loans. The fact that the first time buyer's grant has been increased from a maximum of 20,000 to 30,000 allows first time buyers an extra 10 grand in their deposit. This actually helps reduce a little bit of that risk element. So I suppose the government are helping that the banks will continue to lend. The first time buyers grant actually does help first time buyers, but how it really helps is it allows them to get their deposit far quicker. In the scenario right now that we're in, where first time borrowers can actually get up to 10% of the property costs, up to a maximum of 30,000. That actually means that they can nearly get their full deposit, their full 10% deposit through the grant scheme. Which means if you're buying a property for under 300,000 and you have a joint income of 77,000, effectively the grant provides you with your full deposit. Or if you have a joint income of about 55,000, you could buy a house worth 200,000 through the grant scheme and you get your deposit straight away. There are a few important things to realise about the first time buyers grant and who it's really aimed at and why it's really there. Realistically, it's really aimed at the construction industry and the lending and the bank industry. And there's a few key factors that would suggest that is the case. First time buyers grant actually benefits the banks. One, because to qualify for the grant, you have to be borrowing more than 70% of the property price. Therefore, this incentivizes the banks to actually lend, and it also forces people to go and make sure they're borrowing more than 70% of the property price. So this has a negative impact on someone who's a cash buyer or someone who has saved a large deposit. The government want houses to be built. By setting the first time buyers grant at a maximum of 500,000, it does two things. The first thing it does is it promotes builders and developers to develop cheaper houses rather than building larger, more expensive houses that they might actually make a greater profit on. Two, it actually allows developers and incentivizes developers to build cheaper houses, but also allows them to justify slightly higher prices on properties that are valued lower than 500,000, and therefore it makes more and more projects feasible for them to do it. So some questions have come in over on Instagram in regards to the likelihood of extending the first time buyers grant to second hand homes. I don't believe that's going to happen. There are some property bodies that are actually making the case for it to happen, but I don't see any real economic value on an overall economic value for it actually to happen. It won't promote new homes to be built, and therefore the government shouldn't and won't introduce it to second hand homes, because overall it would have a negative impact on the delivery and the completion of new homes within the state. So therefore it doesn't seem like a good policy, considering that we want new homes to be built. So finally, is there better value in buying a second-hand home or a new home as a first-time buyer? Well, the quick answer to that question is you will get better value in a second-hand home. However, the first-time buyer's grant is actually designed so you can get your deposit quicker and you can get on the property market faster. So the real issue there is, can you save enough to actually buy in the second-hand market? However, with the first-time buyer's grant and buying a new home, you are limiting your choice. You also have to stay in the property for 5 years to get the full benefit, and the minute you buy the property, you actually remove any desire for any first time buyers to actually buy it off you, so you immediately devalue the property from what you've actually paid for it. If you found this video useful and helpful, give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel. Also, generally on most Sunday evenings I answer a handful of property related questions over on Instagram. I'll leave my Instagram link down below in case you want to follow me over there. But again, as always, thanks for watching.